Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is an indie pop singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer based out of London. He's got a new song called What Are You Waiting For out right now that you need to go check out on all streaming platforms. Before we get this episode started, please make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to follow me at Parker Whirling and at On That Note _podcast. And on that note, please welcome Props. I'm sitting here with Props, an indie pop singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer based out of London in the UK. Thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. I heard your newest single, What Are You Waiting For, on Spotify's Fresh Finds indie playlist. It was released July 14th, and honestly, it's just a total banger of a song. And when I went back to your discography, I saw that you've been pretty busy this year. You released 4 singles already in 2021, which is a pretty hefty amount. And I'd love to ask you about the writing and recording process behind this new song, What Are You Waiting For? And just if it was any different from your previous releases, if there was something special about this one that sticks out to you.
Yeah, I guess so. This was the first song that I collaborated on. So I demoed it by myself and then I took it to a mate who's a bit of a whiz, and we took it up to 11 basically. My mate Jamie Biles, he's a very, very good producer and writer, and we just kind of originally started off with originally it was like a lighter guitar sound, whatever, and then he kind of pushed it up a notch, which is good. But all my stuff usually starts pretty basically, really basic. So my it's basically everything's like done on an acoustic guitar to start with usually, or piano, and then I just if it works like that, it'll probably work as a song. So that's what happened with that song. So kind of demoed it on a acoustic guitar to start with, and then kind of built up with some beats and bits and bobs, and then now it's large sounding.
Yeah, it definitely is very large sounding. It is funny to imagine even an acoustic version of this song, but I agree with you. If you can make a song just on guitar, just on piano and your voice, you're probably going to do a great, you're going to make a great song without all the effects on it. And your songs do have a lot of kind of cool effects to it, which just adds to how good like the songwriting is.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder whether my production style is like kind of me not really knowing what I'm doing. So then it's just experimentation and thinking, oh, that sounds cool, or stumbling across something which sounds a bit weird or off kilter, and I'm like, that's interesting. That if it's weird enough,
Let's follow that rabbit. Let's keep going with that little thing you just discovered. I was just talking with a guy named Clark Sound, and we were saying how it seems like the best things in your creation process that come out are the things that are accidents, like happy accidents that you never would have expected to happen, like little sounds that end up becoming its own hook and things like that.
100%. I think it's when you're writing the song, I says it always just feels like stuff just comes out spontaneously. With that song, I played this guitar riff thing. I mean, it's basically 4 chords, but the way it kind of I don't know, just playing it, and then suddenly I just basically came up with the chorus hook just like that, and you never know where it comes from, and then it's just those little things which are like, cool, now this song has identity or whatever.
Identity is a really cool word to use there, because sometimes it's hard to find your voice, especially when you're starting out, and over time, as you do write and record and release more songs, you start to figure out what feels like you and what you really enjoy, and maybe what's something that is like part of your identity, but maybe even stretching yourself, like that's an interesting thing to realize, like, oh, maybe that's something I wouldn't usually do, but it does feel right, and you just got to keep going with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think with my stuff, it's always just like anything that is just kind of a bit like overt. It's a bit, yeah, it's louder than usual, or it's, I don't know. Like I think, because I guess I'm generally quite a quiet person. Like the fact that, yeah, anything that goes like really loud, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, this is fun. Like yeah, into it. It's kind of contrasting, but in a really nice way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your vocals and your songs in general kind of have like a quiet, loud aesthetic to them, like where the quiets are really accented because of when those like explosions happen.
Yeah, I think I just love a drop. I was brought up on, I mean, as much as, yeah, like I love like indie guitar music, I was really into bands like Muse and
Yeah,
Pendulum.
yeah.
And it was like, yeah, basically where the music relies on dynamics, the whole ups and downs, and yeah, just excitement, I guess. Yeah, that's what.
So how was your experience for first experience collaborating with somebody?
Kind of weird, but also kind of normal. So it's a friend. I used to be in a band with him, um, playing very different music. We used to play like jazzy stuff, and then yeah, I've kind of worked with him on bits and bobs since then. That was a fair few years ago, and yeah, we work really well together. It's really odd. I don't like the idea of working with many other people, or like I want to work with my friends rather than strangers, just because I guess it feels comfortable. But then sometimes you gotta, yeah, think outside the box and actually try some different things, because then sometimes that can work quite well. But yeah, in this instance, it was so comfortable, and we were basically always on the same page, always thinking the same thing. And I guess that's when you're like, oh yeah, this is cool for this song. It feels good.
Yeah, it makes sense to work with somebody who you really click with, and like you said, who you're always on the same page with. What did it look like when you guys were collaborating? Was somebody really focusing on one thing, or were you kind of all generally doing a little bit of everything? Like, what did maybe the daily grind look like for you guys on this song?
So I guess we had like maybe 3 sessions on it across a long period of time. Like I originally wrote the demo for this a bit more than a year ago basically, and then we had a session or two last summer, and then kind of finished it off not really until the start of this year. Um, so yeah, it was basically us in his studio, and yeah, he's a bit of a whiz on all the techie stuff. So he was mostly doing that, and then I'd just wander over to a piano and just play a little thing, and his ear would prick up if he thought that something was good, or he would say, "Oh, how about you try this?" And then yeah, I kind of add that in. But it's quite good. I think we both are quite well aligned in terms of I guess our kind of like our musical upbringing. Like we yeah, the kind of genres that we're into are fairly similar, and that we could kind of lock into where this song was going. Yeah, in terms of all the sounds we wanted and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's good you guys already know each other pretty well so that you don't have to do any of the awkward like meet and greet stuff with somebody who, you got to get past all that and you got to get to know somebody while you're trying to create something that can be, like it can be interesting, but I would imagine it's a little bit more comfortable and easier just to get to the heart of certain songs quicker.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it definitely helps massively. Um, but yeah, so we'll see. I'm sure I'll probably do some more. Well, I have done some more writing with him since, and
Nice.
yeah, it's yeah, it's always exciting when you come across a fun new idea, and yeah, well, we'll see where that one gets to.
Do you have a favorite part of the creation process, whether that's writing a song or doing the recording or even, the actual release and how you go about like a release campaign?
Great question. I think it's between two things. The buzz of like working, like the start of a song, when you with pretty much all my stuff, I'll start writing something, and if it's going somewhere good, I know that I'll eventually release it. It's basically like, yeah, cool. This is one I like this enough that I know that I'll carry on working on it. And I guess it's just waiting for that to click with an idea. So if an idea, like, which does also happen a lot, kind of, you work on it for an hour or so and it's like, not quite into it, I'll just chuck it away and I won't bother on it. But yeah, usually you find out pretty quickly if you're into it, and then you just keep slamming it out. But it's also the kind of decorating bits at the end. I love adding extra effects and synthy stuff and basically making stuff sound even bigger, or cutting stuff out to make sections sound like cooler, I guess. Yeah. I suppose it's kind of weird. Yeah, the middle bit is kind of it's fun when you're building it up, but it's not as good as the initial, like, this is the start of something good or whatever.
Very few things touch that initial excitement. And you're right. There is a moment, at least for me, when I have a song that I'm starting, and then it only takes one thing to be like, oh, okay, here we go. Now we can actually, like, work on it, knowing that this could be something really good and will be something I release. And on the opposite end of that, even if you work on something for an hour or 2 hours, that it's not happening. You're just like, fuck it, I'm abandoning it. And you don't feel bad because it's not something that's worth your time. But sometimes you could spend 5 minutes on something and you're like, you already know that it's going to be the next thing.
Yeah. It's weird that thing of, like, because sometimes you'll also you'll be really into a song, but then you reach a roadblock and you're like, do I keep pushing this and pushing and pushing and trying to find it, or do you give up? I think sometimes it's definitely, most of the time, it's probably worth pushing through it if you're that into the song. But then, sometimes you're just like, nah, it's not the one.
Sometimes it comes really easily too, and you're like, maybe I don't have to put as much, hard work into it as you would expect. And I don't mean hard work you got to work hard on it, but like, if you're banging your head against a wall trying to make something work, it might not be worth it.
Yeah, totally. It's really difficult. I think most of my stuff, I guess, I'm really looking for, like, the fundamentals of, like, good melody and good chords, and it's like, well, at least that comes really early in the process. It's like, I'm not waiting for some incredible, I don't know, synth sound or some, I don't know, like nuts production idea to put in there. I'm just like, as long as I've got the basics there, I'm happy, kind of thing.
I think that's a really smart way to do it too, because I didn't always do that. Nowadays, I really focus on making sure the songwriting and the song structure is, like, good to go before I record anything. But that was not the case for me, like, even a year ago. Definitely 2 years ago. It was a lot more like, let's make a song and let's figure out what the melody is later, which, can yield good results, but it's also like, it can kind of be shooting yourself in the foot because you might have this really cool beat and then no idea with where to go from there. And the fundamentals of a good melody are what make a song listenable. I mean, to me, not to everyone, but I think to a lot of people, and especially in a pop world, that's what's important.
Yeah, so short attention spans and just wanting something hooky that we can get into straight away,
Right.
rather than a sound or a vibe. I guess that is equally really important, but I suppose the kind of building blocks are like, what's the most important thing? Yeah.
So, do you feel like within the years of playing and releasing music that there's one or a couple breakthrough lessons, breakthrough moments that you had that kind of gave you something really important to hold on to when you went on to release music in the future?
I suppose so. Yeah. I think one thing is definitely, like, not overthinking things. Yeah, I've definitely done that a lot in the past. Like stuff like trying to fit into a genre, or seeing what's the kind of what popular songs are coming out, what songs are really really popular at some moment in time, and then being like, oh yeah, I should do something like that. But actually, just kind of being more in the moment and just doing whatever suits the song that you're writing is really important. Yeah, I think a lot of people, and me included, often will like hear a tune and like, oh, I want to write something like that. That would really work. But then, whenever you come to write something, I suppose it always kind of does. It doesn't quite come out exactly the same as what you were maybe influenced by. But I don't know. I think sometimes going in with a fully open mind is, basically, really helpful. I think that's definitely what I've done. It's taken a little while to kind of get there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
I think I'm
especially
just
when
about
you're collaborating with somebody, you want to have an open mind with where a song can go instead of trying to constrain it or overthink it.
100%. Yeah. I suppose that's the same with so many things, like with the lyrics. Yeah. Sometimes I have in my head one idea of where I want this thing to go. And then actually, as long as the other person, chips in an idea that I'm like, oh yeah, actually that could work. Let's do that. And it's definitely a good thing to think about. 100%.
So I was doing some research online and I came across an interview when you released your first song, Wired, with The Other Side Reviews was the name of the website. And it was all self-produced. But you said in the interview that there was some anxiety regarding, releasing your first song into the world, which of course, I mean, makes sense. You're putting out your first thing ever. People are going to listen to it, have their own opinions, and, it's a scary thing. So how did you feel when it was finished? Like, what was the feeling you had when you knew that this was going to be something you released? And then, what was that feeling when it was released?
With that original song, with
Yeah,
Wired?
with Wired.
Yeah. Good question. So basically, I've always been a drummer. I've always been the one at the back of the stage, never wanted to really take the limelight or anything. I still don't. But I've always wanted to, like, I don't know, put out music that I've entirely made myself. And especially it's something that I've sang, that I'm singing on is insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea, even now, I'm like, I've never been a singer. That was my eighth instrument, I could do the guitar, I could do drums, keys, trombone, and then singing would be so far down that list that you have, and then it's just, it's funny how, I don't know. I guess, so I started writing a little bit before the pandemic started, but I think when that came, it definitely gave me a bit of a nudge to actually just start doing it more and, enjoying it, even if no one else listens. Luckily, a few people have, so that's nice. But, yeah.
Yeah, people have really been enjoying the music, and you've got a great voice. And it is funny because I was similar thing. Like, I never wanted to sing. I wanted to write maybe music with a band, have someone else sing it, and me be part of it. And eventually it just got to the point, like, that wasn't happening. So if I wanted to make music, it was going to have to be by myself, and it was going to have to be me singing it. And you just get over that fear, and you realize, everyone, unless you're like, straight up medically tone deaf, you can sing. And you just got to work on it, and you just got to practice it. And maybe you're not the best singer in the world, but neither is Bob Dylan. Like,
thank God for auto-tune.
Yeah, and true, auto-tune. I went crazy with auto-tune, my first song ever, and I listen to it now, and I'm like, God, why did I do that? Like, I could have just not had it on, and it would have sounded probably just fine,
Yeah, totally. I had it for a long time. Like, I first recorded songs that I'd written when I was like 14 or something, like on my dad's laptop kind of thing. And, I listened back to them a fair few years ago now, and I was just like, man, that's awful. And then since then, I've gradually been trying to figure out how I could actually use my voice and make it sound good. Like, would it be singing really loud, or should I always go falsetto, or should I don't know, keep it all moany? And then in the end, I figured out that it sounded kind of cool, and I was just like complaining about stuff, and yeah, just keeping it quite quiet and kind of, yeah, not particularly coherent, I guess.
Well, it's different for everybody. That's the thing, is there's not really a trick to finding your voice. Literally, it's like everyone's gonna sound different, and you just have to not be afraid to sing, even to yourself. Like, it can be scary to even admit that you want to sing at all, even for musicians who just don't do that. Like, but if you want to make your own music with your own vocals, like, just play around, with yourself at home and just sing it to yourself, and gradually figure out what part of your voice sounds the strongest, and maybe what doesn't sound as good. You can work on it, or work on a way around it to make it sound, decent. Do you have any advice for artists who are maybe struggling with the confidence to release their very first song out into the world?
Yeah, I think the thing is to just do it. That's what I did. I think I was really nervous. In fact, I put it out like without anybody that I knew knowing about it. So it was entirely a secret project. And I basically,
That's cool.
I think I wanted to get some validation from the music industry, whatever, that I could keep doing what I was doing. So I put it out, not telling anybody. And, luckily there's all these blogs online and stuff like that, and they'll have a listen, and if they like it, they'll talk about it. And that, I think, makes a massive difference. Like, just trying to, well, it did to me. Like, yeah, just getting some validation that what you're doing is all right, and you should keep going with it.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
feeling of acceptance is so, it's so nice, and like, you're kidding yourself if you don't like it. It's just important to know that other people really enjoy it, because you want them to. And also, your first release, almost everyone, I think, looks back at their first release and has things that they wish that they could probably change about it. But
tell me
that's
about it.
that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Like, every song, you're gonna get better. So there's no reason to think that first song you release is gonna be perfect, because it's not. Because as you go down your journey, you're gonna look back at things that you never could comprehend in that moment, and you're gonna be like, oh, I should have done this, this, and that. But at the moment, you're not thinking about that. You just want to be excited about it and know that you're gonna get better as you keep progressing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, with that Wired song, I'd literally been working on that for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, most of my songs actually have been written over the last like 5 years or something, and then I've just kind of gradually tweaked the lyrics to make them suit better. And yeah, basically, since not being in bands, I've had the time to kind of figure them out and produce them up, that kind of thing.
Nice.
But yeah, I think you're right. It's definitely that thing of just taking time, figuring stuff out, and putting it out.
Being patient with yourself too, I think.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like, I guess I have, but then I've also been impatient, because I'm like, damn it, why don't I just hurry the hell up and put stuff out? But then being a bit of a perfectionist, yeah, it's just like balance, isn't it? So
Absolutely. Balancing that, because you want to be patient with yourself, but you also want to give yourself the nudge when you know that you need to just go ahead and work on something, or go ahead and put something out.
yeah, and when you're working on stuff, I think it's so weird. You do a version of a tune, and then you look back at, like, well, you record a few more new versions of it, or you tweak stuff, and then you listen back to that first version, and you're like, damn, that had something about it that the new ones all haven't had, or something.
Ah,
Like, trying to, yeah, like, vibe. But maybe that's because I had about, yeah, literally like 12 versions of Wired, where something was changed in all of them, and then I
oh
like
wow.
listened back to the first one and was like, that's probably the best. But I just kept tweaking and producing, or compressing stuff and trying to make it sound bigger and better. But actually, I was just making it sound more boring. In the end, I think I hit a balance. It was all right.
You definitely did. It's a great song, and everyone listening should go check it out immediately after this interview.
Yes.
And that's going to
Thanks.
take us over to the last five, where I'll just ask you five quick questions and we'll be done.
Sweet. Sounds
Number
good.
one is Logic or Ableton?
Good question. Ableton. It's like a toy, but I do like
Yeah,
Logic.
yeah. I love asking that one because it's pretty 50-50. Everyone who answers, it is like a 50-50 response. I don't know why I thought you were going to say Logic, but I appreciate that you're an Ableton user. And you're right, it is like a toy. It does feel like you can do an infinite amount of things very quickly.
I switch between them though regularly, but I
Okay.
think Ableton is just it's just more fun. Yeah.
It is more fun, but I think it's more fun if you know what you're doing because I don't usually know what I'm doing when I'm playing.
Yeah,
It's
fair
like,
enough.
I mean, I've just been using Logic so long that when I do get on Ableton, it's like I can't do things as quick as other people, and it just makes me frustrated.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. It's definitely a bit of a weird beast. But I sometimes I think that not knowing about how something works gets like weird and more interesting results.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
yeah, because I feel like I know Logic really well because it hasn't changed much over the years. Um, yeah, although then again, the new Logic with all the crazy synths and stuff, I just don't touch that stuff anymore. I'm just like, I just stick with simple stuff, guitars and drums and synths
One
that I
day I'll
make out
get
of weird
the
sounds.
one day I'll get the real Ableton. I used to have the beginners version, and when I got a new computer, it didn't come with it. So I was like, it's not really a big deal, but I would like to get, like the real version that you pay for so that I can start playing around with some new stuff and see what I can come up with. But not yet because I don't have that kind of
Yeah,
money right now.
it is ridiculous because Logic is 200 quid and it's like, well,
Right.
it's for me anyway, $200 for you guys, I guess.
Yeah, it
And
is.
it's just it is incredible, and you can do everything that you need to really on it.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Question number two is, what do you think is a perfect album front to back?
as in out of all the albums that I've ever heard, what is my
Yeah, like
favorite?
what? No skips.
No skip album. Oh, that's tough. Because I was thinking even one of my favorite albums, which is I can't remember the name of it. Everything in Transit by Jack's Mannequin. I
Oh, I've
love
never
that.
heard of them.
Yeah, I guess they're quite small as a band, but anyway, yeah, that album is really great. But there are a couple of skips on it. I would probably go with something like Red Hot Chili Peppers' Greatest Hits because that's just a cop out. But
Nice. Yeah, the greatest hits
yeah,
album.
you can't go wrong with the Greatest Hits album.
No,
That's
I
kind of a lame answer.
no, that's I don't know anybody that said a greatest hits album, but it's kind of like makes sense if they're the greatest hits. You're not going to skip any of them.
It doesn't have a story to it, I suppose, in the same way that some other albums might. But they'll have. I don't know. I'm a singles kind of person nowadays. Kind of
Hey, that's
sad.
okay. That's where the pop hits are. That's a great way to learn like what makes a good pop hit is to listen to things like greatest hits. Question number three is, who's your dream artist or producer to work with? I know you said you like working maybe, with friends and things like that, but if you could expand that to to anybody you want, who would it be?
I think to get the brains of Rick Rubin on a track would be incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's also a bit of a cop out answer, but
Well, it is a popular one on this show, but it's also one that I personally agree with and say for my own music. So I feel you there.
yeah, I think it's, if someone can do that many genres and nail it, then it's probably a good person, and he's been going for so long, smashing it on everything he works on.
Yeah,
But
he just seems like such
yeah,
a genuine dude. Have you watched his new documentary series with Paul McCartney?
no,
It's really
that sounds
cool.
good.
It's on Hulu, and they basically it's just them in this like studio, and there's a bunch of film crew people around them, and it's just like the mixing console in front of them, and they're going through all old Beatles tracks and Paul McCartney tracks, and Rick's just asking them questions, and they're just, I mean, it's like this where they're just talking, and they'll go through songs and like just put up the bass or just put up the drums or the vocals, and they'll mess with all like the individual tracks and talk about it all, and it's just so cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
I'll
I
have to check
recommend
that
checking
out.
it out.
I will. Sounds
Rick
great.
Rubin's the man. I always appreciate a Rick Rubin answer for that. I was thinking what could be interesting was a collaboration with either Charlie XCX or AG Cook. That'd be really cool.
Ooh, that could be fun. Yeah, good shout.
Yeah.
I'll try and get
So
in
we'll
contact.
put it out there in the universe that that'll happen at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. Nice. Yeah, that could be interesting. I could imagine that. Yeah, good
Yeah,
shout.
right?
Yeah, funny.
Question number 4 is what's on your musical rotation right now?
Ooh, I've got this playlist called New Sick, which I update now and then. And
Yeah, I
it's
checked it
all
out
on
before
there.
this interview.
Um, yeah, loads of stuff on there. I'm trying to think. All the Emery Wolf stuff is really fun. Trying to think. There's a really good Jordana tune called I guess this
Jordana?
is I guess this is life. It's just it hits me every time. Trying to think. Yeah, usually I just bung tracks on there. Half the time I don't even know who the artists are or what the song's called, but
Yeah.
just like it as a vibe. And then
More of a playlist guy?
yeah, I guess. I do when I find someone, or like we'll find like a couple of tunes by someone that are really good, I'll then check them out more.
Right.
But
you do the
yeah.
deep dive as soon as you find
Yeah.
somebody new.
Exactly. Yeah. If there's somebody, who I'm like, cool, this is good. Oh, there's Dog Trainer. Heard a song by Dog Trainer. What a weird name
Dog
for a
Trainer. I've
project.
never heard of him. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's just a good tune by him, them, whatever. I don't know. That's what they're called. But yeah. Anyway, it was fun.
Well,
I thought, oh, this is kind of similar to mine. So yeah.
Gotcha. So I'll
Yeah.
go check out Dog Trainer and Jordana. How do you spell that?
Jordana, Jordana.
Oh, okay. So just
Yeah.
how it sounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. The last question here before we're done is what is your favorite decade of music?
That is a good question. Really solid. I mean, it's going to be the noughties, because that's when I was like, really getting into stuff.
Really?
Like end of that, I was a teenager and just loving. Yeah, like they were just good indie rock albums.
Yeah.
Here,
Well,
there,
you
and
did
everywhere.
mention Red Hot Chili Peppers, so that makes sense.
Yeah, because I suppose their best albums came out in the 90s, but I didn't really clock them until, the 2000s. And then, they had a good bunch of stuff. Yeah, and there's a lot of that kind of, I don't know, I always think it's West Coast, like, pop punky stuff. It's just like California surfy pop, but not really pop, just ballsy guitar music. Yeah, I don't know.
It's
I
fun
love
asking that question because that's a pretty split one. Like, I think 70s might be the most popular answer, but it is
Really?
pretty spread out. Like, there's, a lot of people say different things. Probably the least common answer would be like the 2000s.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know why, but I'm more of a 2010s, and maybe the last guy said 65 to 75, which I accepted because that's technically a decade. And I think that's better than just the 60s or just the 70s, but I don't know. I mean, it's all good. You're going to find good stuff and bad stuff in every decade, so you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even now, the 2020s, they're doing pretty well. There's a lot of good tunes out.
Pretty well so far, I would say, definitely.
Yeah. And it's what I like about now is that stuff just spans so many styles. Like you've got stuff influenced by the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all
because of
kind
the
of
internet.
amalgamated. Yeah, and it's all just everything that you could want to listen to now is about, although it's just got different recording quality to the, the original sounds.
Yeah, it is an interesting time to be making music because there's never been so much available media for everyone, and not even just music, but just all kinds of media, video games, music, and TV shows and movies, and you can take inspiration from anything, and it's just wild to think. I think genres and subgenres are like important for communication's sake, but there's not really like, I mean, it's just getting so muddy nowadays, like that it doesn't really mean that much when it comes to creating something.
Totally, which I think is really cool. I think yeah, it's a good thing not to have boundaries and to be able to cross them freely. And yeah,
Yeah. It makes me
yeah,
wonder what like the next wave is going to be, or what we think in the future this wave is, because I'm sure like when grunge was happening, I don't I don't know how much people were like, "Oh man, the 90s are going to be the grunge era." Like I don't think people were probably consciously thinking that.
yeah, yeah. No, it's true. That's good. Yeah, it'll be fascinating. I wonder whether it'll just be seen as the era of the big mess because everything's just
The big
yeah,
mess.
yeah. It's just everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Everybody's trying out all the different genres. Whatever you want to listen to, you can find it pretty much. Yeah.
Very saturated.
Yeah, I think it just like there are trends, sure, but it's like they go so much quicker. So the whole of the 90s is a big sound, but then I don't know, even say like 2021, 2023 might be the new 90s influenced sound, and that's
Yeah.
it's only going to be a couple of years. It's like when the 80s kind of revival into like synth pop stuff came along, it was very much lasted about 5 years rather than say 10.
Right. And
So maybe I'll
now
just
with
keep.
like Olivia Rodrigo putting out that Good For You song, that's such like a, like a 90s, early 2000s pop punk kind of Avril Lavigne vibe.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, it's like the biggest song right now, but what's it going to be in a year? It might be like this 60s ballad type of song that we didn't expect to come out of nowhere.
yeah. Yeah, or like an indie guitar track, or I don't know. Yeah, it is really odd. And also, it's so odd how similar that stuff is. Like, yeah, the Olivia Rodrigo track you talk about. It's like, to me, that just sounds just like Avril Lavigne. I'm
Right.
well into Avril Lavigne. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of weird how that works.
It's cool to see. It's cool to see people, throwing things back to other eras and doing it really well, but putting their own spin on it. And it's just, yeah, I'm very curious to see how things play out, even over just the next like 5 years. Like, what will be dominating the talk of the town with music and genres and things like that.
100%. Yeah.
Cool.
We will see.
Well, that's gonna be our interview here. Props. Thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. Everyone needs to go check out your newest song, What Are You Waiting For, on all streaming platforms. Like I said earlier, it's just a banger, just total bop of a song. And yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your creation process.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of
It's
course,
been
dude.
enjoyable, actually. Yeah.
It has been. It's been very fun. I love doing these. I love getting to talk with talented artists like yourself.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
Of
appreciate
course.
it.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Cool, man.
See ya, dude. Bye.
See you then. Bye.
I don't mind even if I'm wasting my time.
Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.
Then maybe I'm invincible. Tell me all about the stories on your skin and all the cool places that you've been.